Sionyx. Is it trash or top tier? For a while, I used to be a big hater of the Sionyx and would constantly make fun of its performance. But after using it as a loner, using it in relatively lit environments like cities, beaches, or some airsoft matches, it has grown on me. Now, I have come to love it, and now see that a lot of people that have reviewed it didn't do a good job of comparing it to other platforms and may not have fully understood what it would be well suited for. Price. This is probably the biggest limiting factor for people getting into night vision, and makes the Sionyx look a lot more attractive in comparison to a PVS-14. For a new Sionyx, you can get them for about $700 on their website, and used, you can get them for about $300 to $450 depending on where you search. Personally, I got mine with a battery pack for about $350, while a cheap PVS-14 goes for about $2,500 new and about $1,800 to $2,300 used. For a helmet setup, my Sionyx setup cost me around $600, while my PVS-14 setup cost me around $4,000 to $5,000. That is a pretty significant difference in price, especially when lights, lasers, etc. have not been factored in. This is the main factor where the Sionyx will suffer compared to a 14. Obviously, a 14 will outperform a Sionyx, but with a decent amount of IR illumination, the Sionyx can get the job done. The only downside is that if you intend on using this for, say, force-on-force applications, you will for sure give your position away if you have to resort to IR supplementation. But for more casual purposes like hiking, navigating, or some airsoft applications, this is not as pressing of an issue. Now, here are some video comparisons of the two.
So as you can see in this video, the PVS-14 is not struggling whatsoever. You can see everything pretty much crisp as day. The focusing on my camera is a little odd, but for the most part, you can see everything very clearly. The Sionyx is struggling a little bit. It can see the car, it can see the house, the lake directly in front of me. It's a little hard to see and identify. You can kind of see the sign directly in front of me, while the PVS-14, it is no problem whatsoever. And the GoPro, it's just pitch black. The human eye, I can see a little bit in front of me. The Sionyx can see a lot better than what I can see at the moment, but I can kind of identify that there's a house in front of me. I can see that there's a car in front of me. I can't see the outhouse a little bit further in front of me, like the PVS-14 and the Sionyx can see. I noticed that there's a building there, but I can't see anything past that. I definitely cannot see the bulletin board over in the distance with the naked eye. I can kind of see directly around me. Also to mention that this is a moonless night. It is cloudy outside. However, there is no fog or anything like that. So it is a kind of okay time to be running night vision, depending on what unit you're using. But this is a pretty good time for the Sionyx to use. However, a full moon or even a little bit of a moon would make a much bigger difference in this particular environment. You can see the bridge in front of me. The Sionyx, it is struggling a little bit again. Can't really see the lake, but the 14 you can see clear as day out. In this environment, we have a bunch of ambient light in the background. The Sionyx does a lot better in this environment. You can see a lot better. You can also see the color of things a lot better. Looking at a light source, it isn't 100% blown out depending on where the light source is. While the PVS-14, you can't exactly look at the light sources as well. In front of me, you've got some stands for a soccer field. PVS-14, it can identify it, but it can't exactly see all the colors and shadows as well. Here we have a lot of ambient lighting inside of the area that I'm in. The Sionyx captures everything very clearly. You can see the colors of doors and the walls and the roof. You can also see the colors of the playground set that I'm very clear that I'm at, while the Sionyx or the PVS-14 does not capture it at nearly as well. Also with the PVS-14, you have to be a little bit more careful in this environment because you don't want to look at any direct light sources for too long, while the Sionyx, you can look directly at them without any issue. This lighting condition is significantly greater than the one that was before. The Sionyx can see pretty much everything. You can see the car moving down there. The PVS-14 is a little bit blown out. At least with the 14 or the Sionyx, you can see what color it is. Some of the street lights blow out the environment that's around the road. You can see the lights, but the area around it is kind of blown out. With the PVS-14, you can see right through it. You don't even have to worry about it. Here we have a little bit of backlighting from the park that I was just in. We do not have any ambient light We don't have any moon, and we also have a cloudy sky, but no fog. PVS 14 can see clear as day, no issues whatsoever. Sionyx is starting to struggle a little bit. This has been an instance where you might need a secondary light source in order to see past any more than, say, the wood line in front of me. However, with the PVS 14, you can see it, everything around you, no problem. PVS 14, once again, is recording everything, no problem. Sionyx, however, it's very difficult to see. I will put it in my IR light real quick. Flood light. With the Sionyx, you can now see that the environment that I'm in. Again, PVS 14, not an issue. No, it's not an issue. Getting more background footage. With 14, you can see pretty much clear as day. Sionyx, you are struggling a little bit. Sionyx, you can kind of tell that there's a walk path in front of me. PVS 14, you can see everything very clearly. I'm going to turn on my supplemental IR light. Now you can see a lot better with the Sionyx. Once again, if you're just hiking and stuff, having a supplemental IR is totally fine, but if you're trying to keep a low signature or low IR signature, you're not going to want to do this.
Another point that a lot of people reviewing the Sionyx miss. A lot of people say that it lags a lot and is unusable. That is true if you set the FPS to the lowest setting, but if you set it to 60 frames per second, 360p, it works pretty well. The only downside is that while adding frames, you are sacrificing low light capabilities. To combat this issue, if you are scanning, you can switch the FPS to a lower frame rate, and then while you're navigating, you can up the frame rate. Though, if you're using this to aim at a scope or red dot, you may find a bit of trouble. But for passive aiming with lights or lasers, it isn't as pressing of an issue. This is one of the biggest things that a lot of reviewers get wrong. They just slap on a PVS 14 J-arm onto the device and hope that it works. This is not a suitable mounting solution as it is made for a different platform. If you want the device to work properly, you will need the right hardware. For example, the mount that I have on my camera allows me to see through it pretty well as adjust the position of the camera to where I need, similar to how a RNVG adjustment would work, versus a PVS 14 J-arm would not allow me to do that as well. There are also plenty of mounting solutions available online that all allow you to mount your Sionyx to your helmet. Links for these mounts will be in the description. Personally, I used a knockoff G24 and a 3D printed mount that I got on Facebook. On average, a PVS 14 battery will last you about 30 to 60 hours. With the Sionyx, it's give or take 3-ish hours. That is a huge difference. However, you can add a battery pack that'll make it more like 10 plus hours. This can also act as a counterweight to lessen the load on your neck. For most cases, that 10-hour battery life is enough to get around, and I personally have never had to use the full charge even in long airsoft matches. Personally, I use 360p at 60 frames per second. That way I still get a decent amount of low light capability while also not tripping over everything while I am moving around. When I am stationary or scanning around, I sometimes will switch to 30 frames per second at 360p so I can see my surroundings more clearly. For each of these devices, you will be making a compromise. If you get the 14, you'll be dishing out a lot more cash, but your performance will be significantly better. If you get the Sionyx, your low light capabilities will be much less, but you'll be spending a lot less. What you decide to choose is completely up to what your use case is. Personally, I love it for using it as a loaner setup to give to my buddies so they can have a setup to play around with and somewhat keep up with me. And it is great for recording at night, and I love it for when I'm doing casual stuff like hiking or exploring or playing Airsoft. Though, I personally wouldn't use it if I was planning on, quote, shooting real steel, using it for work for, say, military or law enforcement, and I wouldn't use it if I was really trying to compete with more advanced night vision users. So, the choice is yours. What will you choose? If you want a budget build that'll do the job for more casual applications, the Sionyx isn't that bad of an option. If you want a reliable piece of hardware that not only you can trust your life with, but also compete with other more advanced night vision users and not have to supplement with more IR illumination, then a 14 will do the trick.